Well, Ruth, first, thank you for inviting me to be part of the Rolling Bar. This is really, I think it's a nice little treat to have a chance to have a conversation with other people other than Americans. So, but on your first question, Noah, I mean, when we formed SHOP, it just sort of happened because Bill, Corey, and I had just won a competition for Waterfront Park in Greenport, Long Island, and Greg and Kim had won a commission for a high-end fashion shop, Costume National in Soho. And I actually had just gotten my license, architecture license, and we thought, hey, let's just join up and do these two projects together. And I remember Greg saying, hey, let's see how it goes. You know, if it doesn't work out, it's, you know, no problem. And now we're going on 25 years. So it's been a really sort of exciting, fun ride, starting with those two projects.
It has been such an amazing ride to watch because, you know, even if you guys studied, you know, we're done at Columbia a few terms ahead of me, but to just see how, you know, you started at practice, you got bigger, all of a sudden there were shop buildings popping up in the city, then you started with the campuses, and now you're working for major global players, and, you know, it's up to you to tell us which ones you design stuff for right now, and it's such a pleasure to watch that, and I'm so amazed, and I'm so happy that we work together once in a while. You know, at least we're trying to. Who are you working for? Who can you even admit to work for right now?
Yeah, well, we could talk a little about who we're working with now. I mean, obviously, it's unbelievable how many NDAs we all have to sign. But I would say a third of our work is in New York City, on the island of Manhattan, and much of that work is residential. A lot of skyscrapers and things like that. Another third of our work is national, mainly doing a lot of commercial work for tech offices like Uber and Google. And we're also working with Dan Gilbert in Detroit. We've worked in Miami. We are also doing a lot of institutional work. We just finished up a project for Syracuse University. And then I would say the other third of work is global. And then we're doing a lot of work in Australia. We doing a large project in Melbourne, a mixed use project there. But we just, as of yesterday, our project for Atlassian in Sydney was just rolled out. So we're very excited to be doing that there. And, you know, and then we almost finished with our project in Botswana, Africa, the innovation hub there. I think that the one disappointment is we haven't done anything in Germany yet. So we would love to figure out how that could happen. But it's been, did we imagine we would be this place when we first started? No. But a lot of it has come out of the way we've been thinking about technology and the practice of how we work, the process, and also some of the crises we've been through, not just the current one, but the 2008 financial meltdown had a huge impact on how we restructured our practice and moved on. And I would say that was probably one of the most innovative periods in shop history. I would say that what's going on right now is going to be another one.
And, you know, Chris, you and I mean, not only do we have a lot of friends in common, I was a roommate with one of your coworkers, and I was also roommate with your wife up at RPI. and so we know each other quite well. We have been trying to work together in Germany, and there's no doubt in my mind that we'll get you here sooner than later. Because this is what I'm striving for, and I do believe in networking and keeping in touch with the people that have been important, you know, in our lives. I think in terms of innovation, you guys, for me, you built amazing stuff, big structures, but also it's very innovative. And, you know, every single time I come to your office, you work on something else. You just have a new whole floor on the Woolworths building where your office is, and you have another startup. And you know, that's last time we looked at some prototypes. We are also planning a conference about that. You want to tell us something about the Barclays Center, the building that's next to it, and how it was built with modules, pods, and so on, and how you got into that, and what you're planning to do?
Well, that's a lot. That's a tall order of questions. But I might start a little from the very beginning, because I think the first thing is when we formed the practice in the beginning, none of the partners at SHOP had started out in architecture. We all came from very different backgrounds. I studied political science and fine arts. My brother studied structural engineering. Greg was actually in finance. He actually worked in banking before he went back to school to do architecture. And Corey was in business management in Maryland. So when we came together, we all went to Columbia, just as you with, Ruth, well, actually Ruth, you were with a lot of them. I actually started earlier. I went right from undergrad into graduate school. They worked for a couple of years. But what's interesting is that we all got our graduate degree, our professional degree in architecture from Columbia. But when we formed the office, a lot of these other skill sets actually influenced our thinking and our process, especially in terms of finance and business management when it comes to understanding how you deal with real estate and development in New York City. The other aspect that really influenced us, and I think it may be attributed a bit to, my twin brother, Bill, and I both have dyslexia, and we always built models. From a very young age, we were always building models. And so when we got to art, one of the reasons Bill changed from being an engineer to being an architect, he saw what I was doing in architecture school. I was building models all the time. I actually didn't like the parallel bar on the drafting table. Because I had a fine arts background, I felt very free to draw freehanded and using models as a way to communicate. What happened when we all came out of school is that we started to use computers. And again, a lot of the computer work was drafting. It was basically a digital process copying a manual process. I mean, I worked at Richard Meier for one summer and I was inking on Mylar, and I just could not figure out why you would spend time inking on Mylar to communicate information to a builder or a client. When a model or a sketch could actually play a bigger role there. So, and then Greg, had been working with Greg Lynn, and Greg Lynn had been a professor at Columbia, and he was, again, looking at how to use computers to help visualize things. And as you know, I lived with Ed Keller, Ruth, and Ed was, he was the first one, I believe, the first architect in the world who convinced his parents to loan him money so he can get an SGI. And he came into studio and had those models and those renderings. The critics who would come in, like Peter Eisman, was like, how did you do that? And what was amazing about some of these visual graphics is how detailed they could get. And you could run simulations. So when we started the office, we really started thinking about the role of the model as a tool to communicate. And there were two programs that happened when we formed the office. In 1995, the spring of 1995, there was an exhibition at the National Gallery in Washington of Renaissance models. And one of those models was Michelangelo's model for the Dome of St. Peter's. It was 25 feet in diameter, which is, 7 or 8 meters in diameter. You could walk inside of it. And this is how architects communicated. They didn't communicate with sheets of drawings. They communicated with models and sketches. And then the following year, on this public television program called Nova, they did a 4-part series, which you can see on YouTube, on the Boeing's 777 airliner. And Boeing went through the whole process of how they designed, engineered, and eventually manufactured this aircraft completely using a digital model, and showed how the collaborative process, how the supply chain worked, how the feedback loops work. And we, looking at the physical models and the digital models, we were sort of really impressed by the idea that this could be the way to begin to communicate and instruct, not only in the design process, but in the actual fabrication and construction of a building. And it was in the spring of 2000 when we won a commission, PS1 MoMA to do a summer pavilion or folly, which is called Doomscape, where we quite literally designed the whole thing. We still sketch, but taking the sketch information and then building a model around that sketch. And we took the actual model, and instead of trying to print out 2D drawings in plans and sections, we printed the whole building in section at full scale, and we built right on top of the section.
It was amazing, and I lived there this summer. I mean, I was there under the misty towers and stuff. I loved it. It was a riot, and it was really, after the Camera Obscura project, that was really quite something.
No, and we didn't really realize what we had done, but as we were starting to finish up Greenport, and there was this additional program which you just mentioned, this Camera Obscura, which was a little building, is about 500 square feet, and a space that people would go into. It would be completely dark, and it would, through a little pinhole at the top, light would come through, hit a lens and a mirror, and bounce down onto a table, and you get this incredible, almost VR-like effect of the surroundings outside. And we thought, let's see if we can model the whole Camera Obscura in the computer and then send the files directly to the all the different fabricators, and have all the pieces show up like an IKEA kit to the job site. And so at that time we were using Rhino. It wasn't parametric. You didn't have Grasshopper yet. So whenever we had to change something, we had to physically go in there and change it. But through that whole process, we learned so much. And then we translated that information into SolidWorks. We sent the information out to our fabricators in Long Island. Some pieces were laser cuts, pieces were water jet. Some pieces were folded, digitally broken. And what was great, every piece was labeled with information to say what it was. And so what we created was, our drawing set was quite literally an instruction set. If anybody's ever built a model kit, like a Tamiya model kit from Japan, you get this like instruction set, and all the drawings are in axonometric, and there's numbers. It tells you where all the pieces come together. It shows how assemblies go together, sub-assemblies go together. That's basically what our drawing set looked like. There were no plans, no sections. There was no cutting, no measuring. You saw a picture, it was like, again, like putting an IKEA piece of furniture together. And what was amazing is all the pieces showed up to the site, and I remember the contractor saying, this was really fun to put together. And what was also beautiful was all the pieces fit perfectly. And this is something that really impressed us, is when you design something in the computer, it can be incredibly precise, which is not something that you experience on the job site when you're pouring concrete and you're allowed these certain huge tolerances. So this is something that started to influence our thinking about, should we start questioning the way that we build our buildings?
And I think that the pre-thinkers that you have been thinking about new construction methods, fabrication methods for a long, long time. And you're working on something very special that brings me, and we will show that to our summit that we're planning in the fall in Munich. And I also, last time I was with you, you had a huge prototype in your office. So you guys are really thinking file to factory, and you're rethinking the way we think about normal modules and elements. And I think I know that it's going to become smarter, smarter, smarter. I watched your son Harrison and you yourself at the Deutsche Museum when we went to the Lilienthal Ausstellung, all the models of the planes, which, by the way, hang above Bill, hang in your house. I mean, you guys collect plane models. You enter shop on the, I don't know which floor of Woolworth, of the Woolworth building is the reception, but everything is full of planes and models, and then there's models of your amazing buildings. And you were the first ones. I remember when my roommate Kathy started working with you, She always talked about 3D printing this and that and this and that, and it was so unusual to just print stuff out and have like a quick study model. So you were very, very advanced with using all these tools. And I think now you're, and I don't know how much you want to tell us about the new start of the new idea of fabrication. I mean, how it goes from BIM to the model or the module, and what you're working on there.
Yeah. So how do we get to a new model of how we manage and realize our built environment? This is where I fast forward to 2008, when the financial meltdown happened in New York, in the United States and a good part of the world. We had to lay off close to a third of the office. And it was hard. We were able to find positions for a lot of the people that we had to let go, but it really caused us to wake up. We realized, one, we had to diversify. So that's when we started saying, look, we can't just look at residential anymore. We have to be general practitioners. And in this country, which probably isn't the same in Germany, people tend to silo themselves because we're a very litigious society here. And by specializing in a certain area, you are able to sort of control your liability. We didn't believe in that model. We believed in what I would say the early 20th century model, where, you know, the architect was a general practitioner, like Alto, like Gropius, you know, where you could do whatever you want. You could design a park. You could also design a sanitarium. You could design a factory. You can design workers' housing. You could design a library. So we're like, we should embrace this model. We need to diversify. The other thing that we accelerated was, look, we're service providers. We have to sort of move out of that role. We have to try and get a seat at the table and be part of the decision process. And so there were certain things that clients obviously ask you about and expect from their architects is, okay, we want you to do a good design. We want you to also meet our programmatic challenges, but we also want to make sure it comes in on time and on budget. And so one of the areas where we really excelled very strongly on was on our building envelopes. And we started to realize, you know, after we did a project, finished a project in 2003 called Porterhouse, where the whole facade of a portion of the building was wrapped in dark zinc. And there was a company out there, VM Zinc, that had its own detailing system. The thing is, it was so expensive. We loved the material, but we couldn't afford the system because the price point wouldn't work with the development numbers. So we talked with a roofing contractor. He says, well, why don't you just do a rain screen? So you have your weather barrier, and then built off of that weather barrier, you would have a framing system which you could then hang the zinc on. And so what we did was we basically ordered raw zinc from France, 1 meter by 3 meter sheets, and we created our own family of parts. And it's quite literally a puzzle of zinc pieces, and each piece had its own code in the corner. And so carpenters installed that facade, and we did it for $40 a square foot. And that included, you know, the backup wall as well. Whereas the average price at that time was close to $80 to $90 a square foot. So right then and there, we realized by having that kind of digital control, we could manage a very challenging process of just the detail, but also the costing. So fast forward to 2008, we have this huge crisis. We lose a lot of work. And one of the projects that was really impacted by this was the new arena, the Barclays Arena that Frank Gehry was doing out in Brooklyn. And Frank Gehry had a really brilliant idea for this. It was an arena that was be wrapped by 3 very large buildings, 3 residential buildings and 1 office building. And that would hold up the arena, which would be in the space between them all. Well, when the financial crisis happened, there was no way the developer, Bruce Ratner of Forest City, could finance all the projects at the same time. And so basically they would have to start over. The problem is, in order to take advantage of the tax-free bonds that the state had issued for this project, which was close to $400 million, they would have to be in the ground in 9 months. And there was no way there's no way that Frank Gehry could go back to drawing board and come back with construction drawings so that they could stick a shovel in the ground in 9 months. And it was a design build contract, which I think in Germany you would all be familiar with. And the builder said, the only way you're going to get this building up in time to take advantage of those bonds is to have already built it somewhere else. So what they did was they went around the country and looked at other arenas, and they got their Revit models, and they went to see if those Revit models would fit on the site. And the one that fit was the Conseco Field House in Indianapolis, Indiana, and I'm trying to remember who that was. Ellerby Beckett designed it. So they hired Ellerby Beckett. The only problem is they didn't change the design. And the design that had been approved was Frank Gehry's design. So when they saw the new design, they said, this isn't Frank Gehry. You promised us Frank Gehry and we're getting this field house. And it's not fair to Ellerby Beckett because they didn't even have a chance to redesign it. But it was at that time we got a call to see if we would be interested in developing a design for this proposal. And the developer came to our office and he talked to us, and it was a tall order. And he wasn't even sure we'd be capable of doing it. And he left, and we pulled out our pen and paper, and we all started sketching around the table and generated a very quick Rhino model for the arena. And we sent it to him. And I think we heard like 2 weeks later from head of construction, Bob Santa, who said, oh, that image you sent us has caused us a lot of trouble. Bruce loves it, but he wants to know that he can afford it. So they gave us, I think it was about 6 weeks, from the July 4th week to the Labor Day to prove out that we could deliver that building for the price point. And I can tell you right now, we would not have been able to do that without the digital model. And at that time, we had been starting to work with CATIA's, with Dassault Systems CATIA. And eventually I'll get into the 3D experience. But the idea was that we weren't only going to design it, but we were also going to think about how it would be made. And because we would never be able to get the cost certainty without understanding how it would be fabricated. So we took our Rhino model, moved it into CATIA, and we started working directly with a local fabricator to test this out. And in that 6-week period, we were able to get a level of cost certainty where the client said, okay, let's move ahead with the project. And then for the next 3 months, they bid the project out to 3 facade manufacturers. And we worked with each one of them to develop the CATIA model. And at the end of the day, they sent their bids in. One of them won it. And the next day they called us and said, would you like to help us, develop the shop tickets for this project? And we said, that would be fantastic. So we not only developed the project in CATIA, we actually created all the shop fabrication information for their factory. We actually even helped them set up their factory floor for this project because there was 12,000 panels on this building. They were all different. And there were 940 mega panels, and they were all different. And a mega panel is about 3 meters in depth, 3 meters in width, and about 10 meters to 12 meters in length. So it's a sizable piece of architecture that you're fabricating. And after we finished that project, we're like, well, we were actually in the middle of the project when the client came back to us and asked us another question. But as we're doing this, we're like, we could do the whole building this way. To think about actually doing the whole building like you would do an airplane, like Airbus or Boeing does. You do the whole airplane in CATIA, and then you fabricate from those files. And Bruce Ratner came to us and said, I have 6,000 units of housing that are part of this master plan for the arena. And the first building, and half of it is affordable, and the other half is market rate. And he says, I've got to look at another model besides.
Somebody's tea is ready. Is it yours?
Yeah, I think that was my phone. Sorry about that.
Well, that's perfect because it gives me the possibility to ask a quick question. So there's the Barclays Stadium, which I think is a Barclays Arena. I went there with my students a couple of times. It's amazing. And next to it, and that's where we're gonna come, that's where you build a high-riser that's made out of modules. And tell us something about that, because we already are, I have a few more questions for you. And so tell us about how this started, and then I'm gonna ask you 2 more questions.
Yeah, so Bruce realized that, you know, the cost of construction in New York is very high, and he really wanted to look at another process for how we could build this building. And so he said, let's look at modular. And so we worked directly with a modular company out of Pennsylvania, and they started to inform us and tell us some of the criteria. We started to model this information. We worked with David Farnsworth from Arup and his structural and mechanical and fire safety and engineers on this. And we developed these models, and then Forest City and JV'd with Skanska to build the building. There were so many things we learned from this project. First, I want to say the project is beautiful. It's fully leased up. Again, I shouldn't say it's beautiful. People should look at it and decide.
I said that already because I took people there, lots of them.
And it doesn't feel like a modular building when you're inside. But what we learned about this project is when you do modular or prefab, you shouldn't construct it. It should be manufactured. And that building was constructed. It's still the tallest modular building in North America. I believe there's some taller ones in the UK, but we learned so much of what not to do with that project. And as a result of Barclays, that project and a few other projects, we decided 2 years ago to start another company where we would focus on a model-based delivery process, a digital platform where you would basically model every component and have direct to fabrication to your supply chain. Again, going back to that 777 program from 1995, 96, that model in a way is the model that we are utilizing right now in terms of where we think the future of architecture is going. Obviously, there's things that have to evolve here in terms of how you manage supply chain, new material systems, bio-based material systems, environmental systems. But the idea is an open architecture that evolves with time.
That's exactly the reason why we want you here in Germany. That's the reason why we came up, I guess, last year already we came up. You were in Germany because with the summit on future of building. And I think that that includes a lot of factors, and I think we're going to do it more virtual than we were planning to do. We were planning to do it in real life and fly all these people across the planet. So I'm quite happy because I think we're going to hear so much more about what you're working on then. And also, I would love to share with your audience the needle. I mean, you're doing the highest and thinnest high-riser in all of Manhattan. It's amazing, and people can't believe it. You're doing so many amazing buildings, and that people will recognize. And I want everybody, if that's okay with you, I want to share those photographs so people know that they actually met you, even if it was online. And I've always adored yours and Bill's and all your partners' passion. You try out new stuff, you keep experimenting. You can't spend a weekend with you guys without you coming up with ideas and spinning them. And I think that's amazing to see. And every single time we guys sit together, I'm completely energized and I have tons of new ideas. And keep that passion up, because everybody needs it. Our students need it. We need it in that time. And I'm absolutely certain that you guys at Shop will use that time to come up with even greater ideas, just like you did in 2008. So tell me one thing. You're at the Marcel Breuer house now that you bought with your wife, and it's an amazing building. And we were even thinking about, I was able to visit you there. We were thinking about showing something of that, and we were flying a drone around with Harrison, your son.
Right.
How does it feel to be outside in the country? How does it feel to be away from the office? I think I saw Bill the other day online. He was also, I think, not in the office. How does it feel to be remote and have such a huge team? Because I mean, it's you have so many floors of, you know.
Well, we've learned some very important lessons from this. You know, things that we didn't have in the office that we have at home, and things that we don't have at home that we have in the office. We need the office. Everybody wants to come back to the office because that's so much a part of the shop culture. You know, the way we work with each other and fabricate and prototype and share ideas with each other. It's a bit of a challenge with Zoom. You know, I always refer to it as Zoom gloom. And one of the other aspects to it is that a lot of what we do is very experience-based. You remember a lot of things when you're in certain spaces and you see certain things on the wall, or you see certain things that you're working on and you're sharing that with other people. It's very hard to remember those things when you're constantly doing that on Zoom. So we are very, actually, just prior to this call, I was on a meeting with my colleagues on our reentry procedures and stuff, and it's definitely, there's some exciting stuff that we're looking at. Actually, Anna's fab system we're going to be installing in the office, which is a green wall system for air purification. But really, the other aspect that a lot of the staff and shoppers have brought up is the need to be outside, the connection to nature, biophilia, biodiversity. I mean, I see it behind you, you see it behind me. This is what we want in the office as well.
But yours is bigger than mine, you know that. You've been here many times.
Yeah, you're right in the thick of the city, you know.
I know. I have a pocket park.
You know, and there's the key right now, besides the idea of model-based delivery and the digital twin, there's also data analytics. Data is king. It has all the value that we need in making decisions. And running data on the relationship of mental or brain activity when you're around nature, you see a spike. You see different. When you have good air quality, you see improvements in performance. So these are the kinds of conversations we need to have with our clients and say, look, you know, yes, we have to create more space in our offices so people are on top of each other, but we need to do these other things, and it's going to have an impact on your bottom line. I don't think these ideas would be accelerating right now if we weren't in the middle of this pandemic. So in a way, it's been a blessing in disguise that people are waking up and realizing how important our environment is to our, not only our mental and physical health, but in terms of our performance, how we can do a better job and innovate.
I totally agree. And I have to say, I mean, I love your office. You come to this old Woolworths building, this amazing entry hall, and then I come upstairs, and then my ex-roomie Kathy would pull me a beer from the tap because you have this huge bar. So welcome to the rolling bar again. You have a pool table, you have the library, and then there's all these amazing models of your buildings. And I hope I can bring many students to your office over the years. I've done a couple of times, and everybody was always really impressed. And also the way you prototype, the way you rethink methods of fabrication and doing stuff is just really impressive. And as I said, keep on doing it. Thank you so much for being with us today. I think we should show the needle. I think we should show the Barclays and the building, the module building next to it. and we would just put a few things together, and because I need people to see what you really do, what SHOP does.
I'll send you some images of the new Atlassian project that just came out. But I think the other thing is you know, the other thing that's very important to us is how important public space is to all the things that we do. You know, to create great architecture, you need to have great public space. And it's one of the things that was important when we did the Barclays design. The arena is 18,000 seat arena, great, but it's really the space out front. And it's, in a way, it's modeled on the arms of Bernini and St. Peter, except we call it hip hop style. And what's been amazing is how the community has come out and used that space as a space of protest. And it's to us that really is really exciting that is now very much a part of Brooklyn's sort of community and the environment there. So that's something that we didn't see coming, and we're so excited that it's happening.
Well, and I see your buildings on telly almost every day now, so that's another thing. Which, I mean, you know, there's always something good about every crisis.
Well, we want to come to Deutschland, so.
Well, we're working on that. And first of all, I can't wait to, I was running into Martin Schnitzer today, by the way. He says hello. He was running someplace, and I was running back to do this interview with you. And so he says hello. He's also looking forward to the conference that we're doing in the fall. And I think we're going to have super interesting people there. And Germany can't wait to have one of your buildings. And I promise you, I will help you to get there, okay? So thank you so much for joining today. Stay online so we can discuss the rest. But thank you very much. And
thank you, Ruthie, and tschüss.
Tschüss, tschüss. I love when you talk dirty.